and you see us as you want to see us. In the simplest terms, it's the most convenient definition. That's the way we saw each other at 7 o'clock this morning. We were brainwashed.
And an athlete. And a basket case. The princess.
And the criminal. Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
You complete Congratulations, Locke. You are live.
Oh.
What's going on, man?
Busy.
Busy. And of course, old LP's got to drag you off in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
To help him out to interview a bona fide Marvel legend, you know.
Yep. I got Web of Spider-Man number 11 right there.
Oh, here, let me full screen you for a sec. See what's up. That's what's up.
That is what's up, huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
It is nice.
It's a great cover.
It is.
Cover. Yeah, number 11. I remember that so well. Then Kraven the Hunter and all the other stuff.
Kraven the last hunt, man. One of the most renowned Spider-Man stories ever. Mr. McLeod, of course, one of the most renowned Marvel inkers ever.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you know, artists as well, right? He drew, of course, he brought us along with Chris Claremont, the New Mutants, which is near and dear, obviously, to my heart. You know, I have right beside me. I wish I could just like hand it through the computer screen. You know,
me too. I want to. I was playing the drive to my mom's place,
right?
I got some long boxes,
right?
Go through all the New Mutants and like I don't know, like.
Well, listen, let's not keep them waiting. We definitely want to thank Mr. Bob McLeod for joining us in our crazy shenanigans here today, sir. What's up?
How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Listen, you know, just here, let me turn on the camera here so you know who you're talking to. I like my South Park avatar, but the lighting might be messed up here. It's let me. We're pros here, Mr. McLeod, as you can see, right?
I can tell, yeah.
This is it, man.
I'm your first interview, I guess?
No, God, no. I've been doing this sort of thing. It doesn't look like it or seem like it, but for like 12 years now on YouTube. You know, we're in comic books, right? So we're in a niche of a niche already. And so we run a small channel, but the people that do come by and watch, whether it's live or after the fact. And by the way, if anyone is live, by all means, put your questions for Mr. McLeod into the chatter box and we'll get to them all. Mostly it's comic book fans or comic book creators that watch us, right? Because what we do a lot of times, sir, is we just talk about the sort of like inside baseball of making comic books. You know, to a lot of people that might be boring. To us, it's amazing. And you, sir, have been doing this now for what, 5 decades? You know what I mean?
I started in 1974.
Wow, that was the year I was born, sir.
I was 3 years old.
3.
Oh my God.
Oh, by the way,
baby myself.
By the way, go ahead, Locke, and introduce yourself, sir.
I'm a big fan of comic book. I grew up in a town north of here where my first experience, I came to Canada in 1978, 79. And I was the only Vietnamese guy in the entire town, right? This town was like, you know, 4-way stop and that's it, right? And there was a convenience store, and that's how I learned English and got into comics. Was there was this medium that was in this bag that cost at the time like 50 cents, and you get like 3 or 4 comics at the time, and that's how I got into the industry. And then as I grew up and learned that there was a bigger city like Toronto that was down the street, I would go down there and go to these Comic Cons where they were, you know, basement, like that was held by, you know, a local comic book store that was in a hotel room that was, you know, a dark basement, and pre-cosplay, pre-stuff. And I ran into all these creators. Like the first time I experienced was, I think I was 16. And I ran into this guy who was sitting by himself at this table. His name was Stan Lee, and, there was all this stuff. And I was like, how do I get into comics? And said, oh yeah, here's the address. You write a letter to us and we'll send you like a 5-page script, and you kind of submit it. And, you know, I did what I did, and, you know, I wish I kept the rejection letter. It was like one of those things. But yeah, that's how I got into comics. And from there on, I just like, you know, I literally went into the art field and got into like storyboard concepts and movies and all this stuff. And I kind of then after a while, after I got married and all this, I kind of fell back into it because it doesn't disappear. You know, living out in LA, like running into like the actual Comic-Con was one of those things where it was like one of those experiences where it's just mind blowing. You know, running into creators like, you know, Jim Shooter and, you know, meeting other creators around here in Toronto, like Ty Templeton, somebody like Dan Day, who I remember back in the day he was doing illustrations for magazines and D&D stuff. And like literally one day I was at a convention, I'm just sitting next to him, right, trying to sell my prints. And I was like, wait, I recognize that. And it was like, yeah, I painted that. And it was like, oh my God, you like, you know, I didn't know who he was. I looked him up. I was like, oh my God, it's Dan Day, right? So yeah, that's how I got into the industry. So it was a huge experience. I got like a million questions for you.
Well, yeah, a lot of questions too. And by the way, my name is LP or Larry Higgins, and I too do comic books. I do this series called Nyobi, and we do a lot of it, Bob, through crowdfunding, through Kickstarter. And recently just got picked up by Antarctic Press for publication to be put into comic book stores, right? So we're kind of in, but we're kind of not. You know what I'm saying? Like we're just getting our foot, into the water. And Locke here, by the way, he's just picked up a couple of cover gigs with IDW doing some Hello Kitty and Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
Fun. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be able to pick your brain and just ask some questions and talk a little shop and a little industry and a little bit about your history is going to be amazing. I want to say that I watched a couple of interviews with you just to sort of get the flow of, of things that have been asked to you. So I'm probably going to ask you things that you've been asked probably a million times before. And hopefully I fit in something that maybe hasn't been asked. I don't know. You know what I mean? But you say you got into it on the year of my birth when a young Locke was 3 years old. What was the first comic book experience for you?
It was really great. I started actually in the production department at Marvel doing lettering corrections.
So what is that exactly? So like someone would like letter a book and you go through it to make sure it's spelled correctly, grammar's right. I mean,
well, let me set the scene for you. So they had this room, and Marvel at the time in '74 was almost as small as a little family company. I mean, it felt very like a little family company, very friendly. Stan Lee's office was, like down the hall about 30 feet. My desk in this production room was right next to John Romita's office.
Oh my God.
Marie Seven was down the other hall, the other way. On each side of my desk were two longtime inkers, Mike Esposito on my left and Frank Giacoia on my right.
Oh my God.
And then across from me were two longtime letterers, Danny Crespi and Maury Kuramoto, who did all the title lettering for all the comics. They designed all the logo lettering. And when I got the job on a recommendation from Neil Adams, those two guys kind of taught me how to hand letter. And I had done hand lettering. I took a class in college and learned a little bit. But comics do their lettering a specific way, and they showed me how professional comic letterers draw each little letter. And so part of my job was actually taping the page numbers onto the pages of original art with a piece of cellophane tape. And then, like you say, if the editor, the writer decided they need a correction to one of the word balloons, back then, unfortunately, the way I was taught to do it and told to do it was I had an X-Acto blade, and I would cut out the word from the page of original art and cut a piece to fit in that little opening and tape it on the back, maybe on the front as well, changing the word or moving the word over, moving the whole balloon over, whatever. Sometimes they'd want to like put Conan's sword in front of the balloon, or maybe it was in the way and I had to move his sword over a little bit or whatever. So unfortunately, I cut up a lot of very valuable original art. But that was the job, and that's how we did it back then. Yeah, it's there was especially one, John Buscema used to draw these sketches on the backs of his pages. He would do all these little warm-up sketches of barbarians and sexy women and horses or whatever. And on one page, and it's on the internet, you can find what page it was. He drew this amazing barbarian character with a big battle axe, very finished pencils for him, which, a lot of that time he was just doing breakdowns, but this was beautiful finished pencils. And he sent it off to Ernie Chan to ink it, or to ink the page. Ernie saw that on the back, so he, inked the guy on the back. It was beautiful. Then they needed a lettering correction on the front, and I had to cut up that page and messed up that beautiful drawing on the back. I was 24. I was just doing what I was told. I wasn't thinking. And nobody at the time. We weren't getting original artwork until just before that. They used to just give away our original artwork. Nobody valued it. They just looked at it as production material. So it was just around 74, early 70s, starting to be worth something. But that was for the collectors. The office still was, spilling coffee on it and dropping it on the floor. And
that's crazy, right? Because we hear these stories, Bob, about Jack King Kirby never getting back his artwork, slave to the grind, and these were some of the questions that I had for you. I mean, you bring it up, working in the bullpen, you're sitting beside these legends, you're going over John Buscema's art. You know how I know John Buscema was from this VHS tape, How to Draw the Marvel Way with Stan Lee and John Buscema. You know what I mean? And then, of course, once I saw that tape, I actually started noticing his artwork everywhere. Mostly, he brought up Conan, Savage Sword of Conan. That's where you would see a lot of, Mr.
He loved drawing Conan rather than superheroes.
Yeah.
He liked fantasy. He thought superheroes were kind of silly. It was a job to him.
Right. Now, I actually saw an interview where you kind of mentioned the same thing, because coming up in comics, it wasn't so much superheroes for you, right? It was more Mad Magazine and sort of like the comedic, character sort of style artwork. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So I didn't really finish your first question.
Oh, sorry.
my first job.
Yeah, lettering.
It ties into that. I was doing lettering corrections and worked my way up to art corrections, where I would actually have to draw stuff. And it was a great way to break in the business in retrospect, because I could show my samples to all the editors. I met all the editors in person, and I could talk to them every day and show them what new stuff I was working on. And I was, growing up, I just wanted to be a cartoonist. I was thinking I'd have my own newspaper comic strip, or maybe I'd draw Mickey Mouse for Disney one day, or I was just only thinking of cartooning in the sense of a newspaper comic strip, not in the sense of comic books. I never really expected to be a comic book artist. I can go into more about why I became a comic book artist, but after I got to doing art corrections, finally I showed a sample to one of the editors, Marv Wolfman, and he liked it. And it was kind of a Mad Magazine style sample, because that was my interest. I wanted to work for Mad rather than draw Spider-Man. And so he offered me the chance to draw this satire of the movie Westworld starring Yul Brynner, which had come out recently. And Marvel paid for Marv and me to go to the theater and watch the movie. And they gave me all these nice glossy photos to work from, to draw from, reference photos. And so I felt at the time like, wow, I have made it. I'm living the dream, from when I was in high school. I wanted to work for MAG, and here I am working for Marvel's Crazy magazine, which is their version of Mad. I was just on cloud nine, and it's a pretty horrible job. I was not, very good at that time, and still had a lot to learn. But I was just over the moon.
Going back to the lettering, I say this, in regards to lettering, letters are the unsung heroes in many ways of comic books. And having tried to letter a book himself and butchered it, I can tell you, guys out there, spend the 10, 15 bucks a page, whatever a letterer is charging you right now, and have them do a job because Bob, I'm sure, right? You talked about balloon placements and having to move things around. And I'm sure that's all to get, to show off the artwork properly and get the proper flow of the page and the reading order.
It makes such a difference if the balloons are not in the right place, or if they're covering up artwork needlessly. They've done so many awful things with balloon. Used to be the editor, sometimes in conjunction with the writer, would decide where to place the balloons. Jim Shooter passed an edict at one point. He wanted all the balloons up at the top of the panels, up against the panel border. Even if the Hulk was down here and got all this dead space, he didn't want the balloon floating in the air next to the Hulk. He wanted it up against the panel border.
That's interesting. We have Christopher Jackson in the chat, by the way. He says, hello, what's going on, sir? What's up? Glad someone's joining us here today. You know what I mean?
All right.
This is it.
So I thought that was a ridiculous rule. There's times you want it up near the panel border, but other times I believe they need to be floating. And Jim Shooter just didn't like floating balloons. I went in to talk to him one time. I had lettered a job. I don't remember what the job it was. And I was so proud of it, so happy with it. And I was pointing, see how the balloons are like it? And Jim looked at me and said, I hate floating balloons.
Go ahead, Locke. You asked a question. Go ahead.
No, what was the working in the bullpen at the time? What was it that like as a kid growing up, I was looking at these Marvel comics that was in these blind bag kind of thing at the time, where I was trying to peel the bag. You go to the variety store and you kind of peel and peek in, and it's like, oh, I had already, web number 10 or something like that, right? I'm looking for web of Spider-Man number 11, but it's all Daredevil. Those were the time for me. But what was it like to because I remember when I met Jim Lee and asked about the submission process, and he says, yeah, here's our address, mail in your thing you want to submit. We'll mail you an envelope and we'll give you like a 5-page script, and you draw and you submit that, right? That was the process. Nowadays, because back then the cons were hotel based, right? They were like local hotel based, and I rarely get a chance to actually bring in like my portfolio to actually give it to somebody to review. Nowadays, you have to go to big cons and stuff like that. But at the time, what was it like to work in that environment? Like, did the scripts kind of, because I remember seeing things like, Stan Lee would say, I'm just gonna give you a plot line. You go off and you do whatever, and I'll write the dialogue in. Was that like that when you were working at that time, or especially under Jim Shooter and working with like Chris Claremont and all these?
Locke's got 50 questions in one here.
Yeah.
So you guys are so young. The business has changed dramatically pretty much every decade. So when I got into the business, you basically had to live in New York to get work.
Yeah.
They weren't using out-of-town artists much, if at all, that I remember. And so I sold my car to have money to, I'm from Tampa, Florida. So I sold my car to finance a trip up to New York to try to start a career doing something. And, I got this job in the production department, and I was really just basically happy to have a paying job because I was so broke, and I really needed the income, and I would do whatever they told me to do. And but Mike Esposito, kind of a chatterbox, a lot of stories, really interesting, fun guy to talk to. And then Frank Giacoya next to me, kind of what disenchanted, disgruntled with his career, felt like he didn't get enough respect, didn't like the business anymore. He was kind of near the end of his career, and another guy in the production department with me that nobody liked. I forget his name even, but we kind of didn't talk to him much. It was just fun, going into work every day was really fun for me. There was a guy, the office manager, Tony Mortellaro or something like that, I think it was. Kind of a stern, business-minded guy, trying to keep everything going the way it should, where we were all just kind of having a good time, getting the work done, but, just enjoying ourselves. And, it was just wonderful in retrospect. At the time, I didn't know anything. I didn't know that was not the way things were in the world. You just go and you work with these famous artists next to you, and you have this experience in the Marvel office, and I just took it all for granted. But, in retrospect, it was really amazing. Decades later, like I think in the 80s or the 90s, the production department became Ramita's Raiders, they called it. But I was before Ramita's Raiders. It was just me and this other guy doing these lettering and art corrections. And, it was kind of all on my shoulders, I guess. It was just, I took it for granted, but it was a fun job. I really enjoyed going into work every day. Looking at John Buscema's, Barry Smith's artwork come across my desk. All the best artists in the business, I was seeing their art every day, and I could study it. And I had a lot to learn because, like I said, I wanted to be a Mad Magazine artist or a cartoonist. I hadn't intended to be a comic book artist. So I didn't know real anatomy. I didn't know anything much about lighting or camera angles or posing your figures or how to dress, figures, how to make up costumes, how to draw cars or airplanes or boats or guns or, you got so much to learn to draw comic books. And I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I could draw. I feel like I could draw well when I was 5 years old, but you don't know anything. You got to learn all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it was great to have all that artwork every day going on my desk to study, and I could make Xerox copies. Marvel never liked to put any toner in their machine, so their Xerox machine was pretty crappy, but I could make Xerox copies of whatever I wanted, take them home and study them. Found out later they didn't want me doing that, using up their tonering. But I never, I kind of did it on the sly, and I got a stack of originals out of that.
From Legends too. Can you imagine, right, Locke? You're sitting, you're just doing your 9 to 5. You're doing this letter corrections, but you're surrounded by the top tier talent in the industry, right? Talent that has like names that have echoed for decades, including this man right here. I mean, Bob, you're co-creator of the New Mutants, man. Which, I mean, first of all, thank you.
Exactly.
My favorite, and I know she wasn't in the original first few issues that you did, but my favorite character of all time is Magic. Right now, she came in the play around New Mutants 13, 14 sort of thing. But I mean, let's dive into that. You were doing Crazy for Marvel right after the lettering corrections. How did you go from Crazy to the New Mutants?
It was a slow process. So that was 74, and the New Mutants were 82.
Yeah.
So yeah, good like 6 years, easy 6-8 years.
Yeah. So I moved from production department. I was there for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. I don't know exactly. I guess I could go look up when my first job was. Finally got a job for inking. I was, sitting there doing my art samples, and Mike Esposito said, you could learn to be an inker more quickly than you can learn to be a penciler. And I had never thought about just doing inking. I wanted to do everything, but I said, yeah, okay, I'll try that. And so I started doing backgrounds for Mike Esposito, and that led to doing backgrounds for Al Milgrom and Klaus Janson.
Oh my God.
And just a couple months after that, they got offered a job to start inking on the black and white magazine, Kung Fu magazines.
Kung Fu.
Yeah. When I started, there was every genre of comics were good selling comics. I mean, they had Kung Fu magazines, they had Westerns, they had romance, they had sci-fi, monsters, you name it. There was a genre that was selling a lot of copies every month. So these were the Kung Fu magazines. I think that first job was over Keith Pollard's tight pencils. Then I did a bunch of issues of Kung Fu magazines. And finally, one day I was up in the office. You used to be able to just hang around the Marble office all day, which is how I got a lot of my inking jobs. Just being there, they needed somebody to say, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And you can't do that anymore, but I would hang around a lot. And I was there one day, and this John Buscema job came in, Kazar #7.
Oh, Kazar.
It was late. They'd been trying to find an inker for it. Usually in a situation like that, they'd give it to Vinnie Coletta because he would knock it out over the weekend. He was out of town. There was nobody to ink this Kazar job. And I said, John, I can ink that. And he didn't want to give it to me. I kind of begged for it. And I said, I'm working up at Neil Adams Continuity Studios. Maybe I can get Neil to ink a couple panels. And he said, all right. Very reluctantly gave me this job. Now, this was John Buscema's breakdowns. And it was, he's known as, or was known as the loosest, hardest to ink penciler in the business when he was doing breakdowns. I was in way over my head. And that was my first color comic inking job. And I was working furiously on that, sleeping like 4 hours a night, working on this, trying to meet this fast deadline. I needed it in like a week. And so I not only had to do these breakdowns, which were impossible to ink, but then had to do it in a week. And so I got Klaus Janson to ink a couple pages. Neil inked some little bits here and there. Joe Rubenstein was also in Neil's studio at the time, wasn't getting work as an inker, but he was just kind of around. He tightened up some of the penciling figures for me before I would ink them. And of course, that was the time that my family decided to come up to New York and visit me in New York. So, they had never been to New York before. So I was dead on my feet, sleeping 4 hours a night. And I said, look, I got this deadline, guys. Go enjoy New York, and I'll see you at dinner. But, I got to work. So that was a difficult experience, and you don't need to go find that comic. That's a bad job.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I have it. I'm not even kidding. I got a whole stack of Kazars I picked up. They were about $1 each. I guarantee you 7 is probably in there. So now you're gonna make me go hunt, sir. You know what I mean? But I mean,
so
anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Started getting regular inking on the color comics, and it wasn't until 1979 that I finally managed to get them to give me a penciling job. Chris Claremont wrote it, Louise Simonson, my favorite editor, who was such a godsend to my career, um, offered me this job, Marvel Team Up number 86. Spider-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Not the ones in the movie. These are the original.
The OG, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, not a great job, but I was learning, I was getting better, figuring stuff out. So then I started getting some Spider-Man fill-ins to do and different fill-in comics to pencil and ink. Usually I would pencil and ink them myself. Sometimes maybe I was just inking somebody else. I don't remember. And then I did a couple issues of the X-Men fill-in.
Was it like 151, 152, something like that?
Yeah, Jim Sherman had started number 151 and for some reason couldn't finish it. He had just started laying out a few pages, and I think he finished the splash page pencils, and a lot of other pages were just blank or had just very, very loose ideas for layouts on them. And so they needed that finished. So I finished the penciling on that and inked a couple pages. Rubenstein inked some of it. And then I penciled and inked, I penciled the next issue and Joe inked it. And they liked what I did on that. Louise and Chris liked what I did on the X-Men, and they offered me the X-Men.
Wow.
As regular penciler.
Wow.
Which,
I mean, that's top tier Marvel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, give me the X-Men, sure. I really was excited. And then they just said, well, also, we got this new series we're going to start. Don't have a title for it yet. It's in the works, and you could be co-creator on that with Chris if you'd rather do that.
Can you imagine, Locke?
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of plate B. Here's a little bit over here. We're going to tease you with this one thing, but we're also going to tease you with this other thing. Which way do you go,
Yeah. And I wanted to draw the X-Men. That was a top book. I knew I'd make good money on it. It would be a lot of fun drawing the X-Men. But I said, well, when am I ever going to get a chance again to be a co-creator on a new series for Marvel with Chris Claremont? So I kind of had to take that, even though, that might have died a year later from bad sale. Who knows what was going to happen with this new comic?
Yeah. Can you imagine you have this guaranteed thing, known as the X-Men, right? Dream job, and especially like the way that you came up, right? Because a lot of it sounds like just being ready and available to take whatever came your way to show that you're there, you're reliable. Hey, I'll take that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Led you to Chris Claremont, led you to the X-Men. And now they present to you a book that doesn't even have a name yet, but it's going to be the next up and coming crop of X-Men, like the students of the X-Men. That sounds exciting. Now, before we even get there, right, let's talk a little bit about just like your first interactions with Chris Claremont. How did that pairing happen? Did you guys have, especially when you were doing those first two issues of the X-Men that you dove into, right? Did you have any communication with Chris? What does a Chris Claremont script look like? You know what I mean?
Chris wrote the plot for the my first penciling job on the Marvel Team Up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. So that was my first experience working with him that I remember. And I mean, I might have inked a job that he wrote before that, but he would write very long, detailed plots. At the time I was working from plots rather than finished scripts. And he would give you everything. But at that time, it wasn't like a Stan Lee plot where he just said, go have the FF fight Galactus this issue. Chris had these very long, detailed plots, but as the penciler, you were allowed to do things your way. He wasn't telling you camera angles, anything like that. He was just giving you what was happening in the story and some suggestions about what they might be saying in certain panels. But I kind of had to decide, should I stop this page and start the next page here? Or should I add another panel in, whatever, that kind of stuff. And Chris was in New York or Connecticut. I forget where he was living at the time. And I had moved down to Florida. Once I started getting regular work in penciling around 79. He's thrown away money on rent in New York. I said, this is crazy. So I moved back to my hometown, Tampa, and bought a house with my sister, as you know, to share the cost of the house. And so I was down in Florida. Chris was up in New York. No communication at all. He, you know, the editor, Louise, sent me the plot, and I just drew the story. Same thing with the X-Men. You know, I don't remember talking to Chris at all on those two issues. I just, you know, got the plot or got the whatever and did the work, sent it in.
Right.
Next thing you know, they offered me to do Mutants. And then Chris and I started communicating a lot and talking over the phone. And I went up to New York and had a meeting with him. So we were much more, obviously, a lot of things needed to be ironed out with the creation of this team. How they were going to use their powers, how they were going to look, school uniforms or individual costumes, all these decisions we had to work out.
You know, I want to ask about that sort of creation of this team, right? Like, how was it presented to you? Was it like, okay, so we're going to, these are going to be the new X-Men, you know, like, was it always like, was there a vision of like, one day these kids will become the new X-Men, one day we're going to transition to them? Was it like sold to you in that manner, or was it just sold to you in something like, they're high school kids, we're going to, you know, see what we're going to do with them sort of idea?
Well, if you remember when the X-Men premiered, on the top of the comic, it used to say teenage superheroes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they aged out of teenage. And so the idea was with Chris and Louise, and I think Jim Shooter might have been involved in it too, I'm not sure. They wanted to come up with a younger team of mutants. And they said, let's go ahead and make them even younger, like adolescents. And I think the reason they gave me that option to draw that series, at the time, there weren't a lot, and this isn't just my opinion, this is kind of a general consensus. There weren't a lot of artists around who were good at drawing young kids. They were used to drawing these big, you know, muscle-bound superheroes. So their kids tended to look like small adults. So,
I still do that to this day.
So I forget what the question was. I forget where I was going with this, but
well, we were talking about like, were they ever meant to be like the next X-Men or just high school?
No.
Yeah.
When Chris and I started, the idea was we're going to have this school for gifted youngsters, and these are going to be students in the school and learning how to use their powers. And I don't think, at least from my discussions with Chris and Louise, we had thought much beyond that, whether they would actually grow up. I think the idea was at time to time there'd be new students coming in, new mutants, you know, and hence the name, the New Mutants. And I guess some of them would graduate and move on either to solo careers or maybe to join the X-Men. Although, you know, these were early days, and the X-Men were the X-Men. They weren't constantly shifting members the way they do now. You know, you had your core team of X-Men, and that was that. And so we thought they were just going to be students, or at least in my mind, we were going to be telling stories of them as students. And I was kind of, regret in the right word. I was kind of hoping they'd stay in school longer. Yeah, I remember that stuff. I'll tell you about the graphic novel in a minute. I was hoping they'd be in school longer before they went out and became real superheroes, you know, because I liked drawing them as young kids, and the idea of them learning how to be superheroes rather than fighting bad guys.
Yeah, for me, the New Mutants was my foray into like my own team. You know what I mean? Like when I got into the X-Men, they were a lot older. They were a lot older magazine. I couldn't get back issues. I was just dropped in the middle of something. But for New Mutants, it was like, oh, this is a new start. I was like 14, 15 at the time when I ran to the first set of issues. And that was something that I think either Marvel was thinking of doing, introducing, you know, expanding their universe and stuff. But yeah, that was my thing. Like, when you were, what was that like the overall plan? Did you know about, or was that just something that, you know, you just kind of, it was a gig and you just kind of did what you did?
You know, it seems ridiculous, but yeah, it was a job. You know,
Yeah.
I was just Chris had these characters in his mind before they ever brought me on board to flesh them out, and they needed someone to visualize what Chris had in his head. And I did some sketches which have been publicized in different places. You've probably seen them, and went back and forth about how they were going to use their powers and that kind of stuff. Chris remembers it differently than I do, but I remember saying to Chris, look, you like to draw female characters and I like drawing female characters. Why don't we have more females on the team than males? Because up to then, every superhero team kind of had like a token female.
Yeah.
You know, they were all white guys. And so we were trying to make it more multicultural, and we decided to go with more females. And, you know, I didn't know where the series was going to go. I don't know if Chris knew where it was going to go. We were just kind of taking it a few issues at a time. You know, so it changed. I quit reading it after I left the book because I didn't want to see what other people were going to do.
Are they going to butcher your characters?
You know, I designed them to be a certain way. I wanted Sam Guthrie to be a hillbilly. I didn't want him to be Superman.
Yeah.
I wanted Roberto to be, and Chris wrote him this way, to be a little short, dark-skinned guy who has to deal with prejudice, and not only for his color but for his height. You know, and I designed each one to be a certain type of person, like you and I are. Certain types of people. We're not all Wonder Woman and Superman. You know, so then I left the book, and suddenly their heights start changing, their colors start changing. It's just
kind of different than what you originally had planned. Let's talk about some of the characters. You mentioned Sam, right? Cannonball. In the interview that I watched just the other night, you mentioned that Sam is probably one of your favorites. Going a little bit of background about Sam himself, because he's one of my favorites. I mean, I love all the New Mutants, and you're right. I never even really thought about it until you said it, that there were really sort of more girls on the team than men, but that's not something I ever really took notice of, you know, as a teenager. That wasn't even a factor in my mind because it was just cool. You know what I mean? It didn't matter, you know? But yeah, I mean, just looking on the cover, you got Karma, you got Mirage, you got Wolfsbane right there, you know, Magma would later, you know, at some point come into the team, right? You got Sam, you got Sunspot, Cypher at some point will also come into the team. Magic, of course, my favorite, will come into the team, you know. How much say did you have in the character creation themselves? Was it your job to sort of just design how they looked, or did you actually get, you know, input into the personalities and ages and all the deets, you know?
Well, again, it's always just been about the art to me. I've never had any desire or aspirations to be a writer. I left that end of it up to Chris pretty much. I don't remember ever even suggesting, why don't we have them do this or that or whatever. I just thought, based on what Chris gave me, what can I do? What can I add to this visually? And so, you know, what is Sunspot going to look like? He's going to be Brazilian, half black. What does that look like for me? And my background was, you know, Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
I was drawing and looking at Mort Drucker drawing all of these different facial types and body types. What I loved about Mort Drucker was he would caricaturize the whole figure, not just the face. So he had all these wonderful bodies in his work that I admired. And so when I came up with the characters, so I'm designing Cannonball, and I'm thinking, okay, guy from the hills. What's my vision of a hillbilly? Kind of lanky and maybe uneducated because he's got to work in the coal mines. And what can I do to make him look like a hick instead of like this handsome superhero? So I gave him big ears. I kind of gave him a hayseed look in my mind. Just a country boy, not at all cultured, maybe kind of awkward. And I love that about him, making him this person instead of this stereotype. Or you could say he's a kind of a stereotype, but he's not the typical stereotype for comics.
And he would later go on to co-lead the team and actually be a very integral part of the whole sort of camaraderie that they have here. Let's talk about Mirage, Danielle Moonstar.
So you would think that I would go research Native Americans and look up what a Cheyenne young girl would actually wear, what she would look like, what she would do with her hair, all this stuff. But no, because we were on a deadline. I was not just taking my leisurely time with this. I was trying to get stuff done and get this ball rolling. And so I said, okay, Native American. I'm going to put her hair in braids. I'm going to give her a leather vest and maybe some kind of leather moccasins or boots or whatever. I'm just, again, unfortunately, kind of going to stereotypes, but just because of deadline, not putting as much research as you would hope for something like this, but most people weren't doing research like that.
Well, it was a different day and age, Bob. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here, right? Like, it was a different time.
So, I mean, I was doing my best, but, Mirage, I wanted her to look athletic. I wanted her to be maybe, I don't know, 5'7", 5'8", and kind of look like she could run 10 miles. And attractive. And then I was pairing her with Rain Sinclair, and I wanted Rain to be a ginger, or maybe Chris said she should be a ginger, and gave her kind of spiky hair because she was a werewolf. So I was thinking, well, what does wolf hair look like? So I looked at some pictures of wolves and gave Rain this kind of spiky hair, and wanted her to have bearskin freckles. And
she looks like all my cousins. They're all gingers.
Rather than being kind of a dark, dramatic beauty, I wanted her to just be cute.
She's often the conscience of the team too. She was the one that always kind of like spoke a lot of reason, probably had the most empathy, And then we look at Karma. Talk to me about Karma.
Well, Karma had already been established before we started the group. She was around. She's the only one that had already been there. So I was just going by what she had already been established as. And
did you bring any changes to her?
I don't think so.
No?
Might have changed her hairstyle, gave her a flip hairstyle at some point.
Right.
But she was killed off pretty quickly. in the early issues of the New Mutants. So I wasn't really giving a lot of thought to Karma.
You mentioned Sunspot, you know, shorter, darker skin, Brazilian. I love the way that because it was an interesting thing you brought up. You didn't want him to be like, you know, Superman, and how are you going to have this super strong character who isn't big and bulky? And the way that, you know, he becomes this black silhouette with, so like the solo around him was pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I actually did, one of my early sketches was him getting big like the Hulk when he used his powers. And then we decided, well, we already have the Hulk. We don't need another Hulk. So let's keep him small. Then I had a sketch with him kind of thin, and then I bulked him up a little bit and was just thinking of different ways, different body types for him. I didn't want him to have kind of the kinky African-American hair. I wanted it half white, so I thought I'll just give him really wavy hair. Later I did a mini series with Al Rio. Al Rio drew him with the kinky hair. I didn't recognize him. I'm thinking, who's this guy? as I'm inking the job. And then I said, oh my gosh, this is Roberto. So, you know, I designed him to have a certain look. I wanted him to just be this kid who thought a lot of himself, you know, kind of a...
He was brash and cocky for sure. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still like that now. I mean, I don't know if you keep up with modern Marvel or anything like that, but they've introduced, you know, Sunspot in the X-Men 97 cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, where are my royalties for
well, that's what I was gonna ask you. You know, I mean that's a great question though. I mean, you co-created these characters, and there's a lot of them, if not all of them, are still in play today, right? Danielle Moonstar has her own series. Magic has had. I'm actually going to go to the comic book shop when we're done here. I'm going to pick up Magic Colossus #3. Yeah, I'm still a collector, right? Do you see anything from any of this at all?
Yeah, I get royalties on stuff that when they reprint my work from the past, or when, like this new Moonstar series, I did a variant cover.
Oh, nice.
And so I'll get royalties for that. And I'm supposed to be paid when they use my characters as like if Sunspot's going to be in some cartoon show or whatever, I'm supposed to get paid for that. But
well, he's going to hook up with Jubilee, just so you know.
Okay. I don't keep up, so I don't know what they're doing with these characters. And I should get my lawyer busy and be on top of all.
Oh, we're not trying to stir trouble here, Bob. You're just curious about how some of this works. Is, you know, guys like me and Locke, you know, obviously, you know, I think, oh hell, there I am. I didn't mean to put me full screen, but we got dreams like probably everyone else that one day, you know, would love to work for Marvel. And then you talk about working for Marvel and you're like, yeah, it was like a job. You know what I mean? And like sometimes like when you finally get what you want, like you begged for the Kazar job and then you got it and you're like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a job. And a lot of people that want to become comic artists don't realize it's a fun job, but it is a job with deadlines and certain demands, certain things you can do, you can't do, and you have to be professional about it. You have to be, you can't just take it as when you were in high school drawing your own little guys, you know, making up your own little stories. This is a job.
Yeah. You know what? This is a beautiful book. I mean, as we've been talking, it's been a long time since I've even opened this, you know, and as we've been talking, I've just been flipping through this, and it really brings me back, you know. This book, by the way, is probably about $100 book right now on eBay. Guys, if you well, it's the first appearance of the New Mutants. It's a key issue, right? And it happened in the graphic novel format, you know?
Right.
Talk to me about why the graphic novel and not just start off with the New Mutants #1. Was this sort of like a trial run?
We were going to have it just a regular comic, New Mutants #1, and I got started on it. I'd drawn maybe 3 or 5 pages. I don't remember exactly. And there was no deadline. I was going to have all the time in the world to make this my absolute best work of my career. But at the same time, they were starting up this graphic novel line, and they were looking for something to put into graphic novel number 4. And they had been looking and looking and thinking of what they could do with it. And they finally said, "Oh, we've got this new series, the New Mutants, starting up. Why don't we make that a graphic novel?" And so Chris and I said, "Yeah, cool. Let's make it a graphic novel." But, I went from having a 20-page comic with no deadline to having a 50-page graphic novel that was behind schedule.
Right.
So I love that you like that book, but I was working as fast as I could move my pencil and my pen doing that artwork. I feel like I could have done so much better. It was not a good experience just because I was just so rushed on it. They were going to give the inking to somebody else to meet the deadline.
And I heard you didn't want that. You said, "No, I want to ink this book myself."
I said, come on, it's a graphic novel, a new series. I even better known as an inker than a penciler. You got to let me ink this. And so Louise grudgingly said, "Okay, but you got to meet the deadline."
Over a honeymoon, right?
I happened to be getting married at the same time.
And this is the part that amazes me because when I'm watching you, and I think it was the Sci-Fi Channel that interviewed, and in the interview, the guy asked you, and this blew my mind. He says, "So you were literally on a beach drawing pages," and you're like, "Yep." And he goes, "No, for real," and you're like, "Yep."
Well, actually, we were very lucky. My wife had a friend who had a cabin on Anna Maria Beach, and she offered us the cabin for our honeymoon. So not just a night or two or whatever, we had it for a month.
Oh my God.
My wife, of course, not an artist, not at all involved, was out enjoying the beach. And I was busy just working, all day. And then we get together in the evening or for lunch or whatever, as much time as we could together. But I had to get that work done. And so we were there for a month. So then, of course, my family came and joined our honeymoon on the beach. And my wife's family, it was a very extended honeymoon, but for me, it was a working honeymoon.
Yeah, I mean, and that we hear these stories all the time where it's always deadlines, and the deadlines are always behind. And one of the things that I heard, because I didn't realize this until I really started looking into it, but you did the first 3 issues of New Mutants. I thought your run was longer. You know what I mean?
Well, so jump from the graphic novel back onto the comic. Boom, boom, boom. We got deadline.
Yeah.
And I'm a new penciler, basically, still working things out with my storytelling. How do I really want to be posing their bodies, their arms? What's the best way to show this? When should I use close-ups and long shots and all these different things? Still, kind of learning my, every artist has different ways of doing things. So I'm learning my way of drawing comics. And, I'm not slow, but I wasn't the speediest person. So I'm knocking this stuff out. And then because I'm rushed on my pencils, the inker is rushed on his inks, and he's doing his best. And Mike Gustovich, was working hard, doing a good job and doing his best. But since I had started my career as an inker, and inking was very important to me, I had a certain way I wanted everything to look, and I didn't have time to really do very super tight pencils. So when I saw the way the book was looking after the 3rd issue, back then there was a lag before you'd actually see the inks or the colors or the published comic. But when I looked at the third issue, I just decided, this isn't looking the way I think it should look. Maybe if I took over the inking and just got somebody else to do breakdowns for me, just to give me a start, I could be happier with the way the book's looking. So I switched over to inks, and they brought in Salby Sima to do breakdowns, and that helped. But Salby Sima's style is very different from my style, and Sal was not only drawing the New Mutants, he was doing 2 or 3 books a month at that time. So when you're doing 2 or 3 books a month, you don't have time to really think about each little panel the way I wanted to think about each little panel, because it was my baby, So after a couple issues, I forget how many, that was 4 or 5, 7 or 8, like 4 or 5 issues I inked over Sal. And I dramatically changed a lot of his drawing, because I figured this is my book. It should look the way I want it to look. So I wasn't worried about making it look like Sal. I was trying to make his work look like mine. But I just finally said, well, Sal's storytelling is not my storytelling. He's using more medium shots than I would use, not enough close-ups. He does certain poses the same way more often, because he's been doing this for decades and has his system down. He knows exactly how he likes to do stuff. And it just wasn't my way. So I inked for up through number 8 and just said, I'm just not happy here. And Louise tried to talk me out of leaving the book. She said, this is your biggest mistake of your career if you leave this series. But I was just not happy. I just thought I could do better work than I was doing. I wanted to pencil. I wanted to pencil and ink. I just wasn't happy. So reluctantly left. And of course, 9 months later, started getting the royalties.
What? We get paid for this?
Big mistake. I should have stayed on the book.
Do you feel that way? I mean, in hindsight, when Louise Simonson says you are making the biggest mistake of your career, but you knew you were unhappy, right? You had to do what was best for you at the time. But in hindsight, looking back, do you have regrets, or are you good with the decisions?
A little of both, because I wish I had stayed on longer. Sure, I would have been, really. I'm identified as New Mutants is my thing, but I really would have nailed it down much more as the New Mutants artist if I'd stayed on the book longer, and that would have been good. I would have made more money, but at the same time, when I left the New Mutants, I worked on a lot of books that I would not have had a chance to work on otherwise. So I got to pencil Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, another great job.
Yeah, because when I looked at your resume, right, there was so much work that you've been involved in, and Star Wars just being one of them. You've done work with DC, you've done a children's book. You right, like your resume is as long as my arm. Let's touch upon it. Let's talk.
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff, I would have been busy drawing the New Mutants. Probably would have never drawn Star Wars. I probably would have never done a job for Pacific Comics. I did a couple little jobs for them. I mean, I've worked for Pacific Comics and Charlton Comics and Techno Comics and Valiant Comics and Future Comics, all these different companies, as well as my work with Marvel and DC, pencil and inking for both companies. So I don't have a regret in the sense that I feel like I had a very good career, but it could have been, it could have been better in some ways. But then again, it's a trade-off.
I mean, you don't know at the time, right? What's going to happen and what's going to be. Yeah. But you mentioned those royalty checks. Were they sweet? Were they good?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, those first few issues made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I was able to take a second honeymoon actually to London and Paris with my wife on the royalties from the graphic novel.
We have a question in the chat for you. Christopher Lee Jackson says, Bob, what's your thoughts on having a younger audience? How can you please people who's not within your age bracket? So what, basically presenting a book, whether it's art or storytelling or both in the same, when you guys did New Mutants, right? Much like when Marvel came out with Power Pack, that was obviously aimed for a younger generation. Was the New Mutants meant to be the same?
I mean, at the time, we wanted to sell comics to everybody, every age group, not just kids. I mean, I've had so many people come up to me, like Locke was just saying, it was their series. It started right when they joined comics, right when they started reading comics. This series, The New Mutants, came out, and it meant so much to them in their teen years. They identified with these characters so much, all the things they were going through. It's wonderful that the book had such an impact on so many people. But we were just, trying to sell comics. It's a job, it's a business. So you're just thinking, how commercial is this going to be? What should we do? I just like to draw. So I just wanted, my whole career goal when I was starting out, just pay me to draw, please. My dad was a construction worker, house builder, manual labor his whole career, really hard work. And I used to help him when I was a teenager. So I've done a lot of hard work, and I didn't want to do that. I said, just pay me to draw. What can I do where I get paid to draw? So I'm very satisfied that I had the career that I did. I think I was very lucky to get in to my career at the time that I did. I feel the 70s and 80s were the two best decades.
Hands down.
In comics. I'll hold them up against pretty much any other decade. I've been very lucky.
I'm scrolling through your eBay page, and guys, if you don't know, Bob has an eBay page where he has original artwork up for grabs right now, all on auction. Okay, some of this is, all of it's very beautiful work. But I remember seeing a page on your Facebook, and I chimed in like $100 for a Batman page. That's a steal. And you're like, well, Batman isn't in it, right?
So the pages I'm putting on eBay right now are the pages that aren't typically sought after. They're pages without the main character for the most part. Pages that have been sitting in my drawer now for decades. And I figure, well, why leave these sitting in the drawer? Let me see if anybody wants them.
Yeah.
So I'm putting them up there. I'm putting them at what I consider inexpensive prices.
A lot of this is very inexpensive. Like Marvel right Superheroes,
here,
$50.
Annual page has my pencils and inks and characters on it. So it's probably, this one here, The Adventures of Superman Annual. That's one of my favorite pages. I really like the way that page came out, and I don't want to give that away for $100.
Yeah, so, bidding ended, by the way. This one's done.
Yeah.
Bob, let me ask you, what was it like? Like, I would freak out if I had to ink over somebody's pencil. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is one of those things where, like, I'm good with digital now. If somebody scans me their pencils, like, at least I know I'm confident enough.
You're not going to butcher someone else's work, you mean?
The pencil itself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm looking at Neil Adams' pencil, and I'm like, oh my God, right? I would hate to ink over something like that, or, like, what was that like? Was it nerve-wracking, or was just like,
It's for me, not nerve-wracking at all. It's a different skill inking another penciler than it is inking your own pencils, because that penciler does things that you wouldn't do, and makes you do things in your inks that you hadn't thought of doing before, maybe. But when I started inking, I was inking over a lot of pencilers who I thought that I could draw better than they could draw. So I was kind of, in my mind, fixing up their drawing as I was inking.
Right.
So I would correct their perspective or their anatomy, or put some interesting lighting where they didn't have it.
Right.
Anyone never get mad at you for that?
If they did, they didn't tell me. They might have told the editor, but I never heard it.
Roger that.
But the editors started depending on me to do that, actually. They would give me pencils that needed some help. So for the first few years, I got a lot of jobs because they knew that I could make these pencilers look better.
Right.
And so in my mind, in those early days, at least, I was helping the pencils. And then I started getting some pencils by good pencilers that I was going to ink over. And if a penciler is good, as long as you're a competent inker, you have control of your tools, and I feel like you have to know how to draw to be a good inker.
Right.
That's what I keep hearing. Yeah, because a lot of people make the mistake, inking is just tracing, and I know that's not the case.
It is nothing near the case. So obviously, if you just can have a clean line, you can trace well. But anytime the penciler starts slacking up a little bit, suddenly you're lost.
Yeah.
Whereas because I was studying penciling as well as inking, I knew how to do lighting. I knew how to do the kind of rendering I wanted to do. I knew how to do different kinds of rendering because I'd studied dozens of different artists. My main two, I studied Neil Adams for surface rendering because I really liked the way Neil did his rendering. But I wasn't sold on his storytelling, so I studied John Buscema mostly for storytelling, posing, and I looked at everybody. I said, well, where did Neil learn how to do what he does? And I discovered that he got a lot of influence from Stan Drake and these other pencilers, earlier pencilers and inkers. And then, well, where did John Buscema learn? Oh, he's a big fan of Hal Foster from Prince Valiant. So I studied Hal Foster. And where did Hal Foster learn? I kept going back and trying to find where all of the popular great artists at the time, where did they get their stuff from? So I studied so many different artists. So I had a lot of techniques in my head that I could emulate. So my style kind of developed over the first 10 or 20 years I was in the business, because I had all these various influences. So I was trying all these different things. But when I was inking John Buscema, I could draw and I could render. So other than that first Kazar job, I wasn't going to mess him up. Maybe I wasn't going to do as good a job as Tom Palmer. I feel like later maybe I could, but at that time, you got to learn, So I studied Tom Palmer a lot. Studied all these different people that I admired, and I always felt like I could handle whatever they gave me. Yeah, there's my variant cover, Moonstar. I felt like I could handle whatever they gave me. I wasn't intimidated inking other artists. I was confident, probably overconfident. Since I was 5 years old, everyone my whole life had been telling me how well I could draw.
Right.
Until I got to New York and they told me how well I couldn't draw.
Right.
Joe Orlando, the art director at DC Comics, when I showed him my stuff, said, you need to go back to school and learn how to draw.
Oh,
that must be brutal.
I was 24 years old. That was the first time anyone had ever criticized my art.
right.
I mean, even in art school, I went to college, majored in art, went to art school for a year. I was kind of one of the best artists in the school. So I never got any criticism. So when he said that to me, I said, well, what does he mean by that? Everybody's always said I could draw well. And so I had to start thinking. I had to look at John Buscema and Neil Adams and all these people and say, well, what are they doing that I don't know how to do? And it's just a number of things. You know, I started looking at comics like textbooks and just figuring out how they do this stuff. But it took me, you know, a while.
You know, looking at this cover here, and I'm going to be going to the comic book shop tonight, so I'm going to be searching for this. Do you know if this was like a store release or if this was like a retailer exclusive?
Good luck finding that.
Yeah.
It's a hidden gem variant, so there's fewer of them. So a comic shop had to order, say, 10 or however many they thought they could sell.
Yeah, sure.
Start.
And that's why it's $49 there instead of $4 or whatever.
But it was in the shops, right?
As far as I know.
Okay, I'm hunting for it tonight. Now, if they have it for $50, I won't be able to pick it up. But I know my shop carries Moonstar. I've seen plenty of them. 10 of them to order is not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe, just maybe, Bob, I can pick this up. What was it like to come back? You know, and I know you've done things throughout the years for New Mutants, right? Off and on, you know, New Mutants Forever and things of that nature. But this particular cover right here, to come back to Moonstar and to, you know, the only reason why I can see this happening is to honor you and your legacy and, you know, the fact that you co-created this character. What was it like to come back and do this?
Wasn't that nice of them to offer me that variant? But if you'll look closely, that's a drawing I did in 1984.
Really?
And they had somebody else color it.
Okay.
And he did a very nice job coloring it, but you know, they might have
19. Look, the year is there too. Way down at the bottom, I can barely see
84.
It. 84. Check that out. Yeah.
That was published. I did a illustration of each one of the New Mutants. I was going to do a portfolio, and I never got around to finishing because I was deadlines working on other stuff. I never finished Wolfbane's piece. So I had Danny and Cannonball and Roberto. And the other one was Magic.
Yes.
And
my girl.
Published in Marvel Fanfare. McLEOD's Mutants. They published them and had Glennis Ween color them. So they dug this up from 1984 to use it for that cover.
I mean, I guess, see, I didn't know that this was an older cover. I was presuming, and I guess I shouldn't do that they had contacted you and said, hey, draw something new. You know what I mean?
I have done, I did one for another New Mutants miniseries, the 40th anniversary of the New Mutants in 2024, or 2022, I guess it was. They had me do a variant cover, where I did a new drawing, and I based that one on the very first drawing, very first published drawing of the New Mutants, which was not the graphic novel. It was for a fanzine. And of course, off the top of my head, I can't even think of the name of the fanzine. Maybe I'll think of it in a minute.
I'll have to find out because that's got to be on my hit list now for.
So there's Sentinels in the foreground looking down at the New Mutants, and so I did the same layout, but I did more modern Sentinels, and instead of having the New Mutants look kind of afraid as they did on that first drawing, I have them look ready for a fight on this variant cover. And I've done other New Mutant variant covers over the years. And of course, I did the New Mutant Annual #1. I did that El Rio miniseries. So it's always fun to return to them from time to time. But I haven't kept up. You know, they've made Danny into and another variant cover I did of Danny as the Valkyrie. For another, seems like another miniseries. I forget. You know, they've done so many things with the characters since I left the book.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there was New Mutants Forever, and there's been at least 3 or 4 different volumes of the book itself with just the main title, right? I don't want to keep you all night, so I'm going to fire off a couple of questions. And Locke, if you have anything for Bob, you know,
I would love to pick your brain on tools.
like we have to get him back on the show for like
all
much
this stuff.
longer
Artist,
talk, you know, because there's so much to cover. I mean,
yeah.
Just New Mutants alone, I could talk to you for hours about this, you know.
And that was only a very little small piece of my career. You know, I really enjoyed drawing Superman in the 90s for DC.
Yeah.
What was the difference between Marvel and DC?
Yeah, what was the work life kind of like the work environment?
Yeah,
was that
used to be very different in the 70s when I started. DC was stuffier, you know, a lot of older editors and artists working there, and Marvel was this up and coming, you know, brasher comic company doing stuff that DC wouldn't do. So Marvel was kind of a more fun place, atmosphere. But then, you know, there started being crossovers. People, artists and editors, writers started working for DC when they had only worked for Marvel before. And some DC artists, you know, went over to Marvel to try something different. And so then the companies started being more and more the same. Still, you know, DC had some older editors. A lot of the editors at Marvel were pretty young. So there were still differences, but they started becoming pretty much the same, either place, as far as atmosphere went after a while. And then the last time I was up in the Marvel office years ago, you had to call up and make an appointment to see your editor. Then you had to go sit in a waiting room, and then they would call you in, and you'd go do your business with your editor, and you got to get out of there. And then, you know, in the 70s, I could just hang around the office all day talking to the editors and seeing what other people were doing. And we'd go out and play volleyball in Central Park and baseball in Central Park at the end of the day. You know, Stan Lee pitched a couple games for us in our softball team. Great. Again, I just took it all for granted, but gosh, what a great experience.
Yeah. Like, did the tool change at all for you? Getting from like going from the 70s to the 80s kind of stuff. Did like I know like my paper now that I can get are acid free and they don't fade, and you know my ink nows are pigmented, water resistance. Like I'm usually freaking out because every time I put a pen down on paper, I'm afraid to go over it again. You know.
Well, why don't you show Bob what you're working on? I mean, I know you got something in front of you.
I'd love to see it. Let me see.
I'm currently working on because I do stuff for Tops, and I'm doing stuff like, you know, like this kind of stuff.
And
right?
what did you ink that with?
Just pen, quill. You know, I'm still traditional because
that's
originally I started out.
That's a water brush. That's not a traditional brush.
Well, it is.
For Locke's generation, it is.
Now I'm less nervous because of drips, right? Because now I have control of the ink. Before I was using India ink and you know, like the traditional you know, like these ink. But I ran into the problem is I dip and it's too much, and I got to make sure I have paper towel on hand and, you know, just going over that. But then I start finding out these like brushes with pigmented ink inside.
Yeah.
Right? They're refillable, and I can squeeze and use it because I like using like the dry brush technique to cause like things like for textures and other items and stuff like that. Right. Then, you know, like that's what I like doing about that. But you know, back then I remember the tradition was a pen, quill and sometimes a brush, but you know, the confidence that you had to do. And
so let me tell you. So you would not believe how much the tools have deteriorated over the decades.
Yeah.
When you look at the paper and the pens and the brushes and the ink that Al Williamson and Frank Frazetta, Wally Wood were using in the 50s. Even when I started in the 70s, the Marvel paper was amazing. You can't get paper like that anymore. Everybody that I talk to, they're always searching for. They were just complaining on Facebook this past week about Strathmore 500 not being what it used to be. I mean, used to be able to depend on that expensive Strathmore paper. Forget about it. So paper, not what it used to be. When I started, Neil Adams was inking with a pen nib called a Gillot 290.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, good enough for Neil, good enough for me.
Right.
So I started inking with the Gillot 290. That was an amazing pinpoint. You could do so much with that pinpoint. And yes, I had to practice and get command of it. But then I used it on a lot of jobs, and it was great. Then they quit making it.
Yeah.
And they came back, but it wasn't the same. So the 290, if it's still available now, is not the 290 that it used to be. Brushes, Winsor Newton Series 7 sable brushes used to be the go-to brush. Russ Heath used a number 4 inking his tanks for Sergeant Rock. Neil Adams would use a Winsor Newton number 4. You know, you see artists nowadays using a double aught, you know, a number 1, whatever. A number 4 has a point on it. You know, you can use tiny little lines with a big brush. Most of my career, I mean, I've tried the number 4. To me, I had to go a little slower with it, so I mostly used a number 3, which a lot of younger artists think, well, that's too, you know, I gotta have a 2 or a 1. But you know, Rubenstein, Jansen, and we're all using a number 3 Winsor Newton, and then Winsor Newton started using lesser hairs from the sable, less desirable body parts hairs. So Winsor Newton brushes aren't what they used to be. So everybody switched over to Raphael brushes, 800, I think it is, Raphael, and then those I felt weren't as good. So the ink, God, the ink that Frank Frazetta had is not the ink that you can get today.
Yeah.
Pelican ink used to be the best ink during my career. I used it my whole career basically, and then Pelican got bought or quit. Something happened. They changed their form. The Pelican ink's not what it used to be. I'm constantly trying to find a different India ink that I like. Finally gave up and started using these brushes. Can you see this uni pen?
Oh yeah. I have some of those. Yeah, the uni pens.
So this is what I ink everything with now. I don't even bother trying to find a good brush anymore.
Yeah.
I got fed up with brush and ink and just use felt markers now. These brush pens. You know, I still do very good work with them, but it's not the same as a good old, all the lines that you saw Bernie Wrightson do on his Frankenstein stuff.
Yeah.
He used a lot of pen on that, but when he was using a brush, he could get these long sweeping lines. Frazetta would do these long sweeping lines. You can't do that with these brush pens.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's changed. When the image came in, they started doing all this little stubby feathering strokes because it was easier than doing the long, you know, Frazetta type lines.
Yeah.
You know, styles change. Of course, when digital came in, that changed everything. Talking about hand lettering, it's all done on computer now. You have fonts instead of hand lettering. So I like doing hand lettering. A lot of the European artists are wonderful with their hand lettering styles. What are you going to do? You know, it's a commercial business, so you do what you need to do to satisfy the client, basically.
Well, in the chat, we got Massive Panda joining us. Massive, what's going on? We're sort of wrapping up here, but he's got a question. He goes, Mr. McLeod, I have a set of Series 7 sable brushes that I bought over 20 years ago. Do they even make them from real hair these days, or are they just synthetic bristles now?
No, I think you can still get real sable hairs, but like I was saying, there's evidently better parts of the sable animal to get the hairs from, and they're just not crafted as well as they were 20 years ago. So hang on to those brushes and try to make them last as long as you can. If you clean them and take care of them, you can make them last a long time. We used to kind of use a new brush on every job, you know, making money as single young guys, and they weren't as expensive back then. You know, now what do you
quality costs money?
I mean, I think Winsor Newton brushes now cost $20 or something. They used to cost $7.
Yeah.
You know, but inflation, you know, everything goes up. Zipatone used to be real cheap, and it's almost impossible to find and expensive now. Of course, you can do it with Photoshop now, but whatever.
Yeah, I can only find Zipatone now from Japan. That's the only place that still exists. Everywhere else, just gone.
Yeah, manga artists still like to use it. It's great.
Yeah.
New Mutants the movie happened, Bob, and the last interview I saw with you, it was just before the movie had come out, right? And they had asked you your thoughts on it, and you kind of mentioned that the characters weren't obviously to the vision of the book, like as appearance wise. You know, you had mentioned also that it was a horror movie, and not necessarily sure if that was going to be, you know, the right take. I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but ad-libbing, right? Now that the movie's been out for several years, I'm sure you've had a chance maybe to see it. You know, do you have same opinions of the movie? Has your thoughts on the movie changed? Because for me, the movie was a mixed bag. Things I really liked about it. Anna Joy Taylor's magic. That's my girl. But, you know, there were things that maybe didn't necessarily hit as an old school fan of the series, you know?
Yeah, so it's an entertaining movie, I think. I enjoyed watching it. There's nothing that I contributed to the New Mutants in that movie. So the director of the movie was a big fan of Bill Sienkiewicz's work. And I love Bill Sienkiewicz's work. You know, he's amazing. But he wasn't interested in my take on the mutants. He liked what Bill had done. And he had his own ideas about what he wanted to do with them. And, you know, I've said this in a lot of interviews. I love Maisie Williams. You know, I watched Game of Thrones. She's great.
Yeah, she plays Rain in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So why didn't they make her a ginger? You know, they could have dyed her hair.
Yeah.
Sam is supposed to be tall. So what's his name that played him?
Yeah, I forget his name. He's from Stranger Things. He's on the show Stranger Things. Yeah.
Gosh, what's his name? I should know it.
Someone in the chat spit it out for us.
Yeah, he's good. I liked him. But then, you know, come on with Sunspot. He's supposed to be short and dark skin, and they got this tall, light skinned guy. And yes, he's Brazilian. He did fine. He's a good actor. You know, I'm not criticizing him as an actor, but he shouldn't have been cast. They should have gotten somebody else for that role. You know, the girl that played Danny was fine. Would it have killed them to give her braids? I don't know. It's, you know, horror. I thought, well, yeah, that could be cool. Maybe that'll bring in some new fans that wouldn't have seen it otherwise. But the public didn't know who the New Mutants were. Why not introduce them to our New Mutants instead of just making them different? And movies are a different business. I get it, you know, from comics, it's fine. It's just, you know, it was just kind of not at all how I would have liked to see it made. But then again, hey, they made a movie, The New Mutants. So
yeah, I hope you got something, a little something from that. You know what I mean?
Well, let me tell you, when Chris and I created The New Mutants, we signed contracts that if they ever made a movie of The New Mutants, they would pay us $25,000 each.
Oh.
And we said, oh yeah, right, they're going to make a movie of The New Mutants. Get real. And that's never going to happen. And we joked about it. So then decades later, here comes the New Mutants movie. and they still wanted to pay us $25,000.
Wow.
I mean, even if you just consider inflation from 1982 to when they made the movie, it would be more like 60,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like offering the creators of Superman, here's your annual $20,000 a year. Goodbye.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, like I say, it's a business. Everybody's looking for dollars, and so I got my agent and said, "Hey, they're making a movie. Can you talk to Marvel and see if you can get me more money?" And so he went and they made an offer and brought it to me, and I said, "Come on, they're going to make millions off of this movie.
Right?
Surely you can do a little better than that." So he went back 4 different times trying to get a better offer until finally they came up with something that I figured was as good as I was going to get.
Right.
And it was fine. It's, I'm not wealthy because of that movie.
How does that work in the future? Should they ever revisit that now, though? Is the deal different?
Well, yeah, because that was Fox. That was not Marvel.
Right.
Yeah.
If Marvel makes a New Mutants movie, I should get a better, amount of money than I did with Fox.
Yeah. Because I think that's, I mean, when you guys first heard of the movie news and you all kind of chuckled and laughed, yeah, they'll never make a movie. Clearly now we know, right? That could happen at any point. You know what I mean? Where they just decide, hey, you know what? Especially because now they're bringing the X-Men back to the MCU. It may be 5 or 10 years down the road, but I guarantee you, you and Chris, the Marvel universe in itself is just so full. I heard there's like 9,000 characters in the Marvel universe. Plus,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, well, look how many characters are just in the New Mutants alone.
Right. So, I mean, just to pick and pluck, I mean, I can easily see Anna Joy Taylor coming back, even if she's not in a New Mutants movie, she's magic, or bring back, or recast, if you will, some of these New Mutants and pop them in these movies, whether they're on the official team or not, especially if they're the ones you created. Hopefully, yes, you get something for that. You know what I mean?
We can hope.
We can hope.
And we can hope that they do it in my lifetime instead of waiting until I'm gone.
I'm just going to ask maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Guys, if you're in the chat, definitely say something to Bob before we go. Massive Panda says, I definitely have to go back and watch this live stream from the beginning. Yes, you do. He says, I love these types of creator discussions. I love doing them. When we can get someone on of the caliber of Bob, I love doing these. And they're never long enough, but I always feel like they're too long because, Locke, I'm sure you still got a ton of
I still got Rolodex questions.
But
I can come back sometime, but I'm not doing anything. We can go as long as you're comfortable going.
Well, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long, and then I also got to go to the store or comic shop before it closes. Wednesday routine. But I mean, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at behind you. You still have a drawing board out there right behind you. You have art on the walls. Are you still active in the industry?
I don't look for work in the comic industry anymore, and they don't hunt me down, except, that Moonstar variant was the most recent thing, and I really had nothing. That was from '84, so the one I did before that, when was that? 2024, maybe another variant I did, but I don't really want to draw panel pages anymore. It's a lot of tiny little stuff in it that my eyes aren't what they were when I was younger. I got arthritis in my hands, so I can still draw, still do good work so far, thank goodness. But it's not as easy as it used to be. I have to kind of try a little harder. So I do commissions for fans once in a while, and I do sketches at Comic Cons. I've been doing some painting just for myself because my whole career I'm mostly black and white, so I like to color, I like to paint, so I've been just doing some landscape paintings for myself, and eventually maybe I'll do some paintings to try to sell to the fans, but I'm happily retired, so to speak, even though I'm not 100% retired. I feel like I put in a good 45 years. There's plenty of work that I'm happy with, and I hope the fans enjoyed. So I don't feel the need to keep working on comics for another 20 years.
Yeah.
Have you ever, by the way, here's Locke's cover for my book. So great job by Locke. And by the way, guys, quick shill, if you want to back Nyobi before I officially shut this down, the link is in the chat. Come by and back the final issue. Help me finish the story here. Let me ask you this. Let me just flat out ask the direct question, right? If a would-be comic book creator, indie comic book creator, guys on my level, maybe we have publishing deal, maybe we don't. They, want a Bob McLeod cover for their book. Is that something you're open to? Is that something you do?
Yeah, there's people that are hoping I'll do a cover for them right now as we speak.
Okay.
And, I probably will. I'm at the point now where I work when I want to and don't work when I don't want to, luckily, thank goodness. So it's not something I'm anxious to do. There's a guy that he's a big fan of the comic book Sugar and Spike, and he's been wanting me to do a little cover for his Sugar and Spike collection. And that would be fun to do, so I want to do that, but it's been, like 2 or 3 years now that he's been waiting on that. So I don't know. People want me to keep, making, drawing the New Mutants #1 cover over and over again. And, I've done it a couple times. I, just have no interest in doing that anymore. So I keep raising my price.
Well, that was going to be the other thing. Is Bob McLeod expensive?
Well, that's the thing. I don't want to do something for $500.
Right.
And a lot of guys that are doing Kickstarters and stuff. And I think Kickstarter is amazing, and a lot of people your age now are going that way. And I think it's great that it's available to you.
Couldn't do comics without it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Is paying me a lot of money going to help it sell that much better? I don't know. You're probably better off getting somebody cheaper. So, I'm not saying I don't do covers anymore, but I'm not looking to do them.
Right. And I mean, when you have a career of the longevity that you have, you absolutely, I can see, hey, this feels fun, I might do this, or the price is right, I might do that, or, pick and choose sort of your battles if and when you want to be involved. You know what I mean? By the way, these are some beautiful sketch cards by Locke right here, just showing off more of Locke's artwork. As you can see, me and Locke do a lot of work together, and Locke's mountain of Copic markers behind each one, you know what I mean? Those would be like $10,000 worth of markers right there, you know what I'm saying, man? But this is the sort of thing I do. And I got to say, before I, sort of wrap up my end, and Locke, if you got any final question you want to ask, but without the X-Men, without New Mutants, without that whole 80s vibe of comics that I was reading, without your work, right? My comic wouldn't exist, my characters greatly influence all my characters. It's all female. If people are asking me to describe my comic, it's female X-Men meets the 90s bad girl era. You know what I mean? It's just all the women in my world. They're the ones with the superpowers, not the men. We have to make like Iron Man tech if we want to deal with them, but without you, without Chris, without everyone that came in that era, right? I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't be doing this. You guys have influenced me, influenced so many others, to want to make their own stories, to do their own vibe, just thank you. I just want to say, like for all your work, you talked about the hardships of doing the graphic novel. And at the time it was, maybe not what all it seemed, but when we reflect back on a career that spanned from the 70s all the way up until now, it's pretty amazing what you brought to the table and what people are still talking about to this very day.
Yeah.
Yeah, who would have believed they'd still be talking about the death of Craven storyline?
Craven the Last Hunter.
Exactly.
I mean, we didn't even talk about that, you know. I mean, and you brought up Superman, you brought up Star Wars.
Yeah.
I was reading the list of stuff that you know, a lot of it's ink work, some of it's art. I didn't even really peg you as an inker until I just read the amount of work that you've inked. I always thought of you as, the originator of New Mutants. You know what I mean?
Bless you.
Like for me too, was Web of Spider-Man was one of those things that changed me, because
you mentioned Web 11.
Yeah.
I love that issue. I was just
he has it right behind him. He has it in prep right there. See?
Yeah.
Because I said, Locke, you got to come on and do this interview with me. You're an artist.
Yeah,
I need an artist
exactly.
perspective. Like
that was a very fun issue to draw.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where, like, Web of Spider-Man was my starting point for the Spider-Man universe, because, they had Spectacular Spider-Man, they had Peter Parker Spider-Man, they had all these other runs that were already in the hundreds. You know what I mean? Web was something totally new, and I was like, okay, this is my starting point. That's starting collecting Spider-Man, and when I start going through it, then the starting to like issue 11 and going on, is like, oh my god, what are these stories? Chris Claremont coming in, writing this, and your inking of the Spider-Man and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, this is my jam, right? So yeah, thank you. I mean, this is how it worked, right?
This is how it works.
We're so lucky in this career. When I got into comics, I didn't want to be a superstar. I just wanted to be paid to draw. I didn't want to have fans. I just wanted someplace I could get paid to do drawings. And we're so lucky to have fans and to be in a position where our art can influence other artists in the same way that we were influenced by previous artists. It's incredible. I'm so lucky and very appreciative of my career.
Do you do many convention appearances and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was just at a show this past weekend. I'm going to be at Heroes Con in North Carolina in June. Terrificon in, I believe that's August. I'll be at Raleigh, Galaxy Con in July. I think that's July or August. Baltimore Con. So I think I'm doing 11 cons this year.
Wow.
I'm trying to cut down on them because it's a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
It's great once you're at a convention, but just getting to and from them can be a challenge these days with the airlines, and trying to do more driving instead of flying. But you can catch me pretty easily.
Craziest fan request at a convention or wild story. Any pop to mind?
What is this show rated?
Well, normally we're on late at night and we don't really care about too much, as long as we're not being too offensive or anything. But I mean, we're in the afternoon, but I mean, whatever, just shoot.
Yeah. There's some fans out there that ask for some weird stuff. Not that this is X-rated or anything, but there was a guy had me do a commission, and he was very specific. Every detail about it was, his request. So he wanted me to draw Marilyn Monroe being attacked by a great white shark. She's on a buoy out in the water, and she has the Golden Age Flash coming to her rescue. And as he kind of pulls her out of the jaws of the great white shark, her bathrobe is coming off to reveal her.
People got quite the imagination,
I mean, who would have thought to draw that?
Yeah. Can I get that on a t-shirt?
Right?
I mean, I thought it came out well. I was happy to do it for him, but that was, I thought, a pretty odd request. There's been odder ones that maybe I'm not going to mention here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, Marilyn Monroe and a shark. I mean, first of all, that answer was not on my bingo card. I was expecting, like, someone's gonna try and get you to draw the New Mutants in the jacked way or something. Like.
There's those people. We don't need to go there now.
Locke, any final questions for Mr. McLeod?
No, I mean, I'd love to pick your brain on like styles and other stuff, but yeah, I want to let you go and all this stuff from an art perspective. Like, the deadline back then must have been like
that was really the only problem for me in the career was the deadlines, and they've changed because so many of the newer younger artists couldn't meet a deadline. They just gave up on them, and they have little 3-issue arcs now.
Yeah,
and they'll bring on a different artist. The deadlines were awful. I wanted to ask you, Locke, who are you looking at to get your color ideas, to try to be a good colorist?
A lot of it is like my original influence is, believe it or not, it's I love Drew Gisco or Frank Frazzetta's art style. I'm picking up like acrylic again, which I haven't done in a long time because I know they did it in oil, and I can't work in oil in the space I live like in. So it's acrylic is what I'm trying to get back into, and a lot of the color works and techniques are because I went to art school for this stuff, and I remember painting on acrylic with for like film sets for matte paintings and visual effects stuff. But a lot of it is like bright colors that, because a lot of the time, a lot of my influence is anything that is bright and colorful is always drawing the eye, because when I draw a cover, that's the first thing that people want to gravitate towards, right? So that's where I was taught to do that. But I want to go back and start doing traditional paintings, and that's where I start doing things like with Copic, right? A lot of my cards are very bright, and like if I'm using green with gradients and other color techniques, right? So I try to blend as much as I can with a lot of these, like constantly like paintings and other elements, right? But yeah, like I want to go back and do more paintings, but due to deadlines like these, I do have to rush, and I have my own little swatch techniques and, color all worked out, and, marker settings and stuff like that. And that's where I literally just scrambles. It's just, I don't think about it anymore. I just do it. Right?
Well, doing those cards, right? Marvel tops for Upper Deck, that's what you're doing right now is a Marvel set, right?
Yeah, the Marvel sets. Yeah.
I've done a few of those. Do you remember the cover I did for X-Men 152?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we can find it right
now. Storm and the White Queen fighting up in the air.
Yeah.
And they're above bushes and grass. So I have a lot of green on that cover. So I showed it to the color.
I'm trying
to.
Yeah.
There you go.
Showed it to the cover editor.
Yeah.
It was the only cover in my career that I colored until I started doing variants.
Yeah.
So I showed it to him, and he said, green covers don't sell.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And I said, this cover has 2 girls half naked fighting in the air. This cover's going to sell. But that's, they thought of things like that. That's why so many of the covers are primary covers, red, yellow, and blue, because they pop and they stand out on the stands. So he wasn't impressed with this cover because not enough yellow and bright enough blues on it and everything.
It's interesting to hear you guys talk like that, because that's not something that has ever entered my mind. Like what's the primary color on a color, and is that going to sell? It's too much green. I never heard that before, man.
Especially
well,
now.
Look at all the early superheroes. They're all red, yellow, and blue.
Sure, yeah.
And that's very deliberate.
And Storm looks pretty cool in the white outfit here too, by the way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Yeah, it looks good with her dark skin.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hunt down this issue. I got plenty of older X-Men issues, but I don't have this. I know I don't have this.
Yeah, 1963. Yeah, that's
well, that's when X-Men first started. I mean, that's from the original run. This was out in 1981.
81.
You know what I mean? I would have been like 7 years old, you know.
I'm 10 now, right? Yeah. Like a lot of this is you have to remember too is nowadays the comic book stands are full of their, you know, and the first thing they always tell us is make it bright, make it shiny, make it, you know, all this other stuff. And I was like, oh man, you know, I want to go away with that and do more painting style. But they nowadays it's the technique now is they're asking me, I'm doing this cover all digital though, the Godzilla cover, and they want like a black and red, right?
Fire and brimstone
will pop with the black, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that's like I think Marvel started with the red, white, and black, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason that's picking up, and now they want that. As you know what I mean? It's kind of like
look at your own shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good call. You know, speaking of two girls fighting in the sky, and we here's another cover that Locke had done for me. There's two girls fighting in the sky. Locke, all we're missing is the green background, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, that's why I went with the mute blue, so the girl stands out and pink comes out
right?
more.
Yeah, blue's even better. That's gonna sell.
That's it, man. Beautiful job, man. We would keep chatting with you all day, but you know, we want you to have your time, and I still need to go to the shop and now look for comics I can't afford. So yeah, definitely, guys, if you're watching us on the rewind, go back and rewatch and enjoy the interview. One of the things I plan to do is maybe take some of the, you know, smaller parts, clip them out, you know what I mean? Get them out there. Definitely go to Bob's eBay, you know, especially if you're interested in original art, which is a whole other conversation I want to have with you, by the way, just about original art alone and being sort of like the true collectible now in the world full of AI art, right? We're now looking at, you know, I mean, that's a whole hour there, you know? So we'll definitely ask Bob to come back some point, and we'll get more into the art aspect of everything. Locke, I'm going to put you in charge of that one, you know?
Yeah.
I'd also like to mention that I have a Patreon page.
You do. And that was going to be the other thing that, I went to his Patreon page. I joined up for free. You can sign up for free, but there are tiered memberships that are on there. You want to talk a little bit about how your Patreon works, Bob?
Yeah, it's cheapest one's like $3 a month. I think anybody can afford that. And what I do is post. I started early in my career making Xerox copies of everything I did. So I have pencils and inks of pretty much every job I ever worked on. So I post those in high resolution. And low resolution for the $3 members, high resolution for the members that pay more. I've done a video of me inking demonstration on there, different things. I'm open to suggestions for if somebody wants to have me talk or draw or whatever. But most of the time I'm just posting before and after inks.
Lots of good stuff here, guys. Now, my only suggestion would be unlock a little bit of more of this for the free users so they can actually see what's being offered. Not all of it, right? Just a couple of things, you know what I mean? Because when I came in perusing, everything was under lock. Obviously, you want a lot of things under lock because it's, you know, you want people to pay into the membership. But
yeah, I'm gonna start doing more for the free people. I just didn't want to make people feel like they were paying for nothing.
Right, 100%.
But yeah, I've got some stuff I'm gonna try to make for the free members.
Look, you got some sketch cards right here from 2009.
Yeah.
Right, and I can kind of see that. I know that one's Black Cat. You know.
Yeah, once I've posted them, maybe I'll go back and repost them for free.
Not everything, right? You obviously want some things for the paying members, but every now and then just pop something in there so that like someone who does come by goes, "Oh, look at this is pretty cool. Yeah, maybe I'll sign up." You know. And I love this drawing right up here where they're just hanging out, man. Bob McLeod.
That was a sketch I did for I think Atlanta Fantasy Fair back in the 80s. for their program booklet. So I thought I'd use it again.
Man, that's
my last question for Bob, right? I swear it's my last one. Then I'll come up with 5 more. But in regards to Magic and the New Mutants, right? I know she wasn't in the, you know, in the graphic novel or the first 3 that you drawn. But my question to you is, do you remember any talks with Chris or Marvel about Magic being in the New Mutants while you were working on it? Like, was she like a name being considered that early on, or was what was the talk of Magic at the time, if you remember?
Well, you know, I actually drew her as Ileana in number 3. Maybe she made another appearance, I forget. But no, at the time we were thinking, should we have Kitty Pryde in the New Mutants?
Well, see, that was going to be my other question, because she sort of had this, adversity to them, right? I always thought that Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde, or Sprite, wherever they were calling her at the time, would have made sort of like a great X-Men liaison to them, like almost like leader in a way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked a lot about doing that, and I forget why Louise and Chris didn't want to go there. Maybe because she had already been with the X-Men. I don't remember. But no, Magic, when I was on the book, maybe Chris had already been thinking ahead what he was going to do with her. But I don't remember any discussions with him.
Right, because you had Magic as the child, right? And then the 4-issue Magic Limited series came out, right? Where she was in limbo and she comes back as a teenager, and then after that, that's when they sort of popped her into the New Mutants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not when I was on it. I would have loved to have created Magic.
I bet.
But again, maybe I should have stayed on the book, maybe not. It's not a big regret. I was very lucky to do everything that I've done.
If Marvel was to give you the call today, right, and say, "Hey, Bob," and I'm not talking for like a full gig or anything, you're just like, "Hey, Bob, we're doing something with the New Mutants. We want a fresh original cover, right? Is that something that you'd be receptive to?"
Yeah, like I said, I've done some variant covers for Marvel. I've done a dozen or more. So yeah, I'm always up for a cover. I don't really want to draw another issue. The last story I did was a Kraven the Hunter story. Couple years ago. How long ago was that? It's at least 2 or 3 years ago. A little 10-page Kraven story.
Well, Tom Brevoort, X-Men editor, I know you're on my Facebook page, so if you're seeing this at all, give this man a call, because I want to see it. I want to see a brand new Bob McLeod cover on something New Mutants related, or anything that Bob wants to do. But for me, near and dear to my heart, obviously, is the New Mutants. Bob, listen, man, we can go on forever. We'll reach out again sometime, and hopefully you come back. If you want a more relaxed show, we can do it later at night where you just go, or we could try and stay semi, clean here. Locke, thank you so much for joining me too. You know what I mean? And helping out with this, we were going to have Nick Capone on, who's the creator of, co-creator of Reign of Ages and Purity. He unfortunately was stuck at the Kubert School. He teaches there, so he wasn't able to make it today. But he would have loved to have talked with you too. But Nick sends out his best regards, and hopefully you're teaching them students well, Nick. You know what I'm saying? Bob, you teach too, don't you?
I did teach at a art college in Pennsylvania for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of private correspondence lessons through the mail, a lot of little local classes. I love teaching. I think if I hadn't been a comic artist, maybe I would have become a teacher.
You would have felt that way, yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to run off to the Comic Hunter. I'm going to pick up Magic Colossus number 3, because, again, she's my favorite all-time Marvel character. So I had to bug Bob, even though I know it wasn't really his particular part, about Magic, at least a little bit, And
wasn't she great in the movie? She was spot on in the movie, like she looks in the comics.
She was the best part of the movie, dude. That's why I have a love-hate relationship with that movie, because I think the casting of her was absolutely perfect, and she still like in an age bracket where she can be brought back and used in the new X-Men stuff right now. And for the love of God, I hope that they do that. You know what I mean? If you're gonna bring
Taylor-Joy is really fantastic.
Oh, she's one of my favorite actors. I never thought I would watch a movie on chess, or not a movie, but a series on chess. But I watched that Queen's Gambit like I binged it. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I never thought I could be interested, but somehow she got me hooked. I want to watch the new Furiosa movie, right? The Mad Max, movie that she's in. Haven't gotten to that one yet, but it's coming, So Bob has went over all his convention appearances. We got the eBay, we got the Patreon, we got the bug him and pick his brain. Lock anything else because I'm going to shut her down.
I'm also on Facebook.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
You connect with me on Facebook if you want. I'm easy to get in touch with. Hopefully meet me at a convention sometime.
100%.
There's a convention in your area. It's called OEX. You might want to look into that. So Original Art Expo, and it's all original art. David Finch was there just like a couple weeks ago and all this stuff. So I'm doing some stuff with Eric Grove, his
understudy
apprentice for stuff. So there's it's in Florida. I know that. I was
actually at the first one a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to it this past year. I had another commitment at a Comic-Con. But maybe I'll be there next year.
It's a great place for because I've noticed like a lot of my stuff is all digital, so I don't have pages to sell, right? And now people are asking for original art, so it looks like due to the AI thing that's happening, people are asking now for original art.
And skyrocketing.
And I'm finding out that a lot of collectors are now going into original art. And I'm suggesting those $100 pages might wanna.
It might go up a little bit.
You might want to bring that up a little bit, Bob.
I'm telling you, those pages have lettering right on the page, which you don't find anymore. True, the Hulk isn't on them, but there's some good art there, and I feel like
it's history. It's comic book history when you look at it, right? Those pages, are from our childhood. Those pages are one of a kind. You're never going to have, that original comic book page in your hand unless, it's the OG. Some people try to put off forgeries. Some people have tried to, I've heard cases just today of someone selling fake original art, like, claiming it to be pages, But if you go to Bob's page, his eBay page, you're getting it directly from the man. This is the real deal. You know what I mean?
They've been sitting in my drawer now for 30 years. Yeah.
Which is amazing because, again, going back to, Marvel not releasing the pages, were you lucky enough to get the original New Mutant pages? Like, did you ever have those in your possession?
You could say lucky enough, or you could say tragic enough that I sold them as soon as I got them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm sure, having them today, right, would be, I wouldn't even want to know, Locke, what a New Mutants page would go for.
So wealthy today.
Well, let's end it with this. If you were to give advice to Locke, to me, to any comic book creator out there who wants to make smart decisions in this business and, not get taken, for granted, or, making sure that, that, hindsight's 2020, I guess. So it's hard to make all the right decisions all the time until you look back and go, oh yeah, I messed up there. Right. But what advice would you give just to someone who just wants to just even be involved in this world, especially if it concerns, the art aspect of it, wanting to draw for Marvel, wanting to draw for DC, or best ways to break in?
My best advice would be, don't go to Marvel and DC. Create your own characters, and maybe you would be the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
You're much better off, and now it's so much easier now to self-publish, as you're doing with your Kickstarter.
Which actually led to being published,
you want to get seen, basically. So you want to have a presence. It's nice to have a website, be online, so that people are exposed to what you can do. It's the main thing is just try to get your work seen. And then try to be smart business wise. I would, digital art's great, but there's nothing like having a piece of art on paper or canvas.
Yeah.
Maybe you could start with that so that at least you would have a pencil drawing on original art, and then dress it up digitally. Whatever, but have confidence in yourself. Be professional. Main thing is you've got to think of it as this is a professional career in the same way that being an airline pilot or a doctor or a teacher or anything. It's not just something you're doing as a hobby for fun. If you want it to be a career, it's great to have it as a hobby, but if you want to actually make it a career, you've got to take it seriously and put the time and effort in to become a professional.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder, Bob, if I have a small business growing or if I just have a very expensive hobby. You know what I mean?
It's gotten so much harder to make a living and make a career out of it because there's so much competition. When I started, there were 5 publishers and you had to compete with people in New York. Now you're competing with the entire world.
Exactly.
There's hundreds of publishers. But then again, now there's Kickstarter and other ways to self-publish and get seen and maybe have someone make a TV show or a movie out of your work.
Man, that Locke, he's blowing my mind. I mean, that'd be so cool, right? I'll just settle for this, people. May 13th. This isn't the different cover, right? Because this is the Kickstarter version. But on May 13th, people, Antarctic Press, pick up Superverse Team Up #1, guest starring your girl right there, Nyobi, who wouldn't exist without the New Mutants and Magic, okay? Teaming up with Ben Dunn's characters, Penguina and Tomorrow Girl. This is going to be in shops in less than a month. Beautiful artwork, 56 pages. And again, this doesn't happen without guys like Bob on the panel who help influence and pave that way so that we would have an easier path to walk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Thank you again so much for joining us here today. I'm excited to go to the comic book shop now and brag to my buddy that works there. I just got to talk with Bob McLEOD of the New Mutants,
Exactly.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's fun talking to you guys.
All right, brothers. I'm going to close out. Locke, I'll talk to you later on tonight, brother.
No worries.
All right.
No worries.
Peace out, guys. Thank you. Pretty exciting stuff, man. Got to talk with bonafide legend Bob McLEOD, and I want to thank Bob for joining us. He didn't have to do that, but he was gracious enough to give us some time and jump on in and hang out. So, out the song, and we'll see you soon.